The opinions made in this video do not necessarily coincide with that of Imaginary Goddess, or anyone else for that matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
Waiting for you to arrive again.
And welcome to another episode of Imagine Your Goddess's Deck Profiles. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler, the Mercenary King, here with a Brynhildr deck profile. Brynhildr is one of the lowliest of the triple rares being released recently, and quite frankly, it deserves some love. Its main flaws are that, not that it has a bad ability, but rather that the restrictions placed upon it are not exactly indicative of the usefulness in the deck itself. Perhaps if it was released in a later date without Ultimate Break, well, that's a conversation for later. Let's begin where all decks should begin, at the beginning, with the triggers and the starters. We have the 4 heal, 8 crit, and then, something which might be interesting to some, 4 stands. These crits soul charge for plus 3k. The stands do something interesting. When they are soul blasted, they give out plus 5k to their Vanguard, if it is a Regalia. Quite interesting, and as you can see, part of the winning image of the deck, as well as making sure Brynhildr stays powerful into the very late game when you want to push for win. The starter is Battle Maiden Amenahorikare, which is one of the best starters for Genesis right now, as it provides a free soul charge on attack with a grade 3. As you can imagine, with the break rides, each of which soul charge 1 for a plus 1k, the soul builds up exponentially. Now we move on to the grade 1s. This deck is based on the Regalia archetype, which has recently come into its own with Yggdrasil as well as Minerva. The support in this newest set, Extra Booster Waltz of the Goddess, was instrumental in creating this deck, as well as improving the decks in other ways and making sure that Regalia remains relevant into the modern era. Here we have 2 Ordain Owls. Ordain Owl gives plus 5k when you return a grade 3 to the bottom of the deck to the Vanguard. It's quite useful and keeps Brynhildr powerful into the late game, as well as early game, if you are in that sort of situation. Then we have Exorcism Regalia, Shiny Angel. Shiny Angel, when this unit is placed on the rearguard circle, you can return 3 Regalia units from the drop zone into the Vanguard Soul. As you can imagine, the free soul charge of 3 Regalia units is very useful and will save your bacon, to use the American expression. Then we have Goddess of Union, Juno, named for Hera. You know? I don't know what these crazy Japanese are about. They are got off script there. It's a 10k attacker for the Regalia archetype. It is a pity that it is not a Regalia itself. There are not too many good grade 1s for Regalia at this point that are Regalia archetype themselves. Regalia Exorcism Angel. Regalia Exorcism Regalia Shiny Angel being an exception, along with another one, which I do not use because it has a counterblast. Brynhildr requires 4 counterblasts for her ability to work, and it is in the late game, where the abilities sort of lessen somewhat. Then we have 4 Perfect Shields. The Perfect Shields, no counterblast for the quintet. Well, simple as that. And besides that, Genesis has a problem with quintets, as they are liable to deck themselves out at a greater extent than even Oracle Think Tank. Besides that, this is not a Legion deck. If I lose too much of my deck too early, I won't be able to use Brynhildr's ability to the fullest extent. Moving on to the grade 2s. A rather complex lineup, I think. 4 12k attackers. This is Goddess of Trees, Jupiter. Then we have Regalia of Beauty, Venus. Then Twilight Regalia, Hesperus. And then Regalia of Fate, Norn. The Regalia series seems to rely on Greek and Nordic myth, Norn being one of the goddess of fates, Hesperus being of twilight. For the Greeks, Jupiter, while female, is the Greek god Zeus, except in his Roman name, and of course was part of his worship was indeed Dioctree. And then of course Venus, sexy, sexy Aphrodite. So basically, we can divide these up into 2 different groups. These 2 provide abilities when soul blasted, and these 7, 5, 7. And these 7 are simply power/defense early in the game. I found that this deck really lacks in defense and offense early on, leading me to conclude that I require more power early in the game with the Great One, Unos, Venus, and Jupiter. These 5, however, are for late game when Brynhildr uses her abilities. Hesperus, when this card is soul blasted and put into the drop zone, it gives the Vanguard the ability on hit to kill an enemy's rear guard. Norn simply gives plus 5k when it is soul blasted from a Regalia unit. Both of these require the This does not require a Regalia Vanguard. So, it can be used in any Genesis deck, and I would include it in a Minerva deck without hesitation. Alright, up on to the grade 3s. The break ride for this deck, for this is a break-ridden meta. Still, even though Legion is coming onto the scene, break rides still have their place, or will certainly when the Unlimiters come in, is Regalia of Wisdom Angelica. Her normal ability is quite simple. Every time she attacks, soul charge 1 for a plus 1k. This brings her up to 12,000 power. But her break ride ability is where she shines. Soul Blast 3. When a Genesis Vanguard rides this unit, draw 2 cards and give it plus 10k until end of battle. Quite powerful. The hand size will certainly help you, as nothing else in this deck gives you hand size. And then we have the ace of the deck, Brynhildr. From the Nordic myth, one of the Valkyries. Her full name is Regalia of Wisdom and Courage Brynhildr. She is probably the least powerful of the triple rares that have come out in quite some time. It's a pity, really, because if she had come out in set 9 or earlier, even without her archetype to assist her, she would have been quite powerful. Her ability is simple. She is a cross break ride for Angelica, giving her plus 2k when Angelica is in the soul. The benefit of Genesis is that it's not likely that you'll be without her, so that the 13k defense can certainly serve you. To preserve your hand size, waiting for the 5 damage to attack. Her ultimate break is very simple. Counterblast 4, Soul Blast 6. Choose up to 3 of the opponent's rear guards. There we go. Retire them, and draw a card for each card retired. So let's just say that they only have 2 cards, but you desperately need the hand. Well, you can still use the ability. It's quite fantastic. And along with Norn, if you Soul Blast Norn or Hesperus, you gain more power. You cannot lose. I wish there was a grade 1 version of Norn, so that I could replace them with Ordain Owls or something. Weaknesses. The weakness of the Brynhildr deck is that it has no early game or mid game. You may break ride earlier on for a mid game boost to your hand, waiting for that late game ultimate blast. But it doesn't happen as often as one should like. So here's how a proper turn order should go. You reach Angelica. You're at 4 damage. You need the hand. Break ride. Do not use Brynhildr's ability unless you must, as if they have a powerful field, or if they require their rearguards like Neonectar. Force them to use their card advantage rather than... Make them use their card advantage rather than force you to use yours and risk being overcome. In this era, many decks are hitting 13k quite easily, and so you have to be quite careful. So let's go like this. Just show off what we can do here. So, always keep the Angelica in the Soul. The 13k defense is still a defense. My accent is all over the place. So let's see what happens. We counterblast 4. Then we could gain 30,000 power. Or we could Soul Blast 1 or 2 of these and gain power as well as the ability to retire her units. She does not have to require Soul Blast Regalia units, and in that case we are very lucky. But at the same time, still, the power she puts out is not justified, and she needs that little boost to be able to take down their opponents with ease. Of course, the stands add a little bit of extra flavor to this deck. All in all, if you can overcome the early and mid-game weaknesses of this deck is quite powerful, quite fun, and I shall be enjoying it in the future. This has been Ben Wheeler with another IYG's Masterpiece Deck Profiles, signing out.